make that part two, because I guess the phone has a length of time it will record a video, but it's not like the amount of video it will record before the hard drive is full. It just cuts off after like 34 minutes and 10 seconds, or 33 minutes and 10 seconds of video recording. But I won't go on for too much longer, because I don't want to do too many of these two-part things, especially when I'm just rambling. Where was it? So yeah, there's such an incredible variety of astronomical things that we just either don't know about or have a very vague understanding of, or is even more fun when scientists observe something behave exactly the way they predicted it to. The concept of gravitational waves. Scientists predicted the idea that two black holes merging would create such strong gravitational waves that we would be able to feel them, and then they eventually proved it, right? They what the hell is it called? They made them. So I think there's two. I can't remember what they're called, but they're giant, basically giant laser tunnels or light tunnels that reflect light down. And so as the gravitational waves passed over Earth, it warped space-time, right? Space and time together. So the instruments were able to detect the light actually physically move, right, as they were affected by the gravity of these gravitational waves. So they were able to prove that gravitational waves exist. So that means that there's, that opens up a whole bunch of other science and scientific recipes, right? But I think that when it comes to a job that balances the money, a decent income with a job that is actually enjoyable and you wake up in the morning and want to do, I probably still would have ended up driving truck. That or the military. I tried to get excuse me. I tried to get into the Canadian military years ago, back when I was, skinny and fit like a puma. I did very well in the aptitude test. That's where the guy mistook me for a university student. Though he might have just been doing that to fluff me up a little bit, but I was actually fine on my physical fitness. I was average. It wasn't great, but I passed. But I was still so proud of myself, because I would sit down in the interview after the aptitude test and say, "So what university did you go to?" I said, "I didn't go to university." He's like, "What college then?" I said, "I didn't go to college." He's like, "Fuck!" Like the actual, what was it? Was he a captain? The Americans are going to shit themselves over this guy. He was a great guy, not particularly foreign, right? He was Captain Mustafa Al-Haddad, first generation born Canada, right? To Middle Eastern parents, right? A whole bunch, great. It was awesome. It was really great. He's like, fuck. This is why. He's like, if you'd had college or university, I could put you forth right away for officer school or pilot training. And he said, you're probably too tall to be a pilot. I'm 6'2". I'm probably not too tall, but I'm close. And I'm also, I was heavier. I mean, I'm heavier now, but I was like 260 pounds, which is pretty heavy for a pilot. But it could have been an officer. Okay, or it's basically, at least as far as the Canadian military goes, that means that I've just got to go to school. I would have to go through a college or university course whilst in the military in order to qualify for officer school. If I had already had college or university, I could have effectively pre-qualified for officer's candidacy. So then I came to Canada at the time, and I don't know if they still do, probably do, did a credit check. The way Mustafa worded it to me, because I failed the credit check, he said, the problem we have is, this is when Canada was pulling out of Afghanistan. He said, we've got so many people so many soldiers in Afghanistan that are now coming home and need a job at home, right? So a lot of the positions that we were really pushing for, right, because we needed people out overseas, we needed people to do those jobs at home as well. We now don't have the overseas equivalent, so all the guys that are overseas are coming home and need those jobs at home. We don't really actually need to recruit anybody, or at least not very many. He said, so we've had to find a way, because he said recruitment's at an all-time high. Like there's never been more people wanting to join the military. He said the problem is now we have to make it seem more competitive so that we can, oh, Jesus fucking Christ, here we fucking go. Fucking Taliban Tim's gonna fucking run everybody off the road. Jesus fucking Christ. Fucking nut bars out here. Nobody's on the scene to do that. That's funny. Where was I? So what was I gonna say? He said, like, Canada implemented a credit check because we wanted to try to make the application process more competitive. Right? He said, like, we've got too many people that meet the criteria. Like, I wasn't the only guy that did well on the aptitude test and everything else. Like, you know, most of the guys I went with that day did, if not if not better than me, at least probably as good as me. Right? He said, so, like, we run into the issue where we have a lot of qualified candidates, but at this phase, if it wasn't for the credit check, like, you and every one of those guys back in there are approved. So how the hell do I, you know, what basis do we have to decline some of you guys when, you know, the military is not like a typical job, like, generally speaking. The military, if you apply for something and you get approved, like, it's not like a normal job where, oh, you're approved, okay, now, okay, well, you know, maybe we won't hire you, we'll hire that guy, right? It's typically a job where they're trying to cram as many people into it as humanly possible. So it's kind of they had to implement some way other than basically kind of reverting on their whole ideology and saying, oh, okay, no, you can't be in the military, you can't do that. You're not the most qualified candidate or whatever. They had to kind of have a reason. He said the official statement was it is a reliability screening. So the idea was, if I cannot be counted on to pay my bills, how can I be counted on to, you know, put everything up to it, including my life on the line for my country, which I guess is fair, right? Again, I think most people are look at bills as something a little bit different than they're the guy fighting by their side, or the man or woman fighting by their side, I should say, or the country they're fighting for. The other one he said is it makes you more susceptible to coercion from outside parties. The example he said is okay, say you're out somewhere and a guy comes up to you and says, hey man, I'll give you $100,000 you snap a couple, take a couple selfies with them leopard tanks. And because you can find them all over the media anyways, you're like, oh fuck, sure, I don't care. Fuck it, I'll take some selfies with them for $100,000. And because you might be, if you're in debt, you need the money, you're more inclined to jump on that, right? Especially because it seems like something very harmless, than somebody who is not in debt. So he said, like, the idea would be, and he said, like, I'm not saying that you would do this. I don't think anybody would do this. That's why he told me why they're really doing it. He said, it's just, we have to find a way to make things harder for people, like make it, to restrict the amount of people that are getting into the military, because there's too many people, the bar's too low, basically, like too many people qualify, right? And we don't have a legitimate reason to pick one over the other, so we have to find some way to make it, to thin the herd. So yeah, the idea was the reliability screening. So I failed the credit check, and at that point, like I was pretty heartbroken for a little bit. My credit was pretty poor because I used my credit to kind of help my parents out. They kind of abused my credit and ended up putting it in the state it was in. So I was pretty bummed out because it wasn't even like I had gone on a spending spree and bought a bunch of shit and didn't pay for it or anything. It was literally my parents had used my credit to, and it wasn't ever stupid things like I gave my dad permission to buy a car. We used like internet and phone bills, and they never got paid, including the car. My dad's given me a lot of money over the years. He can't fix my credit for me, right? So I had to do that on my own. But now at this point, I mean, I'm not too old. The Army doesn't really have an age limit anymore, but I'm too fat and out of shape to join the military. I would need to go and quit driving truck and take a good solid 6 months without working and having a personal trainer to get myself in some sort of shape to actually get to the military. And then I would be taking a considerable pay cut, seeing as my as an owner-operator, my gross yearly income is somewhere over $200,000. My net is probably just north of $100,000. And as a private in the Canadian military, I think you get about $34,000 to $42,000 a year. It's not until you become an officer that you see north of, I think, 60 or 70,000. So you would be, people in the military do it because of their passion for it, and I have a lot of respect for that, because I live a $100,000 a year kind of lifestyle now. I couldn't go to a $30,000 to $70,000. Well, I could probably do a $70,000 lifestyle, but that's still a lot of work to get there. I could not do, say, a $40,000 lifestyle. I would have to sacrifice, get rid of a lot of things at home type of thing, which, again, lots of people argue is pretty easy because you're not home anymore, but it's neither here nor there. I've got a friend who's in the military. I've got several friends who are in the military. Several friends that have entered the military in the last little bit. At this point in my life, the military is not for me. Right? Probably the biggest one being is I'm too out of shape. I'm 325 pounds and I need to lose a lot of weight. I'm a big fat guy, right? So I know that I couldn't qualify right now, and the amount of work that would go into to basically qualify for a pay decrease or a pay cut, and a much harder job. Again, being in the military is a lot more difficult than what I'm doing right now. So at this point, I'm pretty settled on being a truck driver, barring some sort of huge industry collapse that forces me to get out of it. Some people talk about that. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's not like we're going to lose our jobs tomorrow to driverless trucks. I understand, there are a lot more people, and I'm discovering that there are a lot more people out there who are very against truck drivers than I initially thought. Because again, I grew up in a time period where truck drivers were everybody's dad, right? Everybody's dads were truck drivers, right? So everybody's uncle was a truck driver. So everybody respected truckers because everybody knew a trucker, right? And truckers were those nice, friendly, the friendly guys with a bald cap and a plaid shirt on that, driving down the highways and would wave to you, honk the horn for the kids, and truck drivers were the. I hate to, because I know it's not the right wording for it. I hate to use a Ray quote, but they were the friends of the road, and I know he uses that to describe fucking hookers. Before anybody in the comments corrects me on that, I realize that fucking Ray in Trailer Park Boys refers to hookers as friends of the road. But the concept of friends or brothers of the highway, I should have just known that. That idea was really actually prevalent, and now it's not. The industry has encouraged a more of a cutthroat mentality, both on the business side and on the employee side. So, I still from time to time get into a good conversation with somebody out here, right? I've had a couple of people where I've had a chat on the CB, we pulled in the truck stop, had dinner. One of them I've added to Facebook. There's a couple other guys that I knew from the truck simulator video games that drive truck in real life as well that I'm now very good friends with. But by and large, most people keep to themselves now. And again, usually the interactions you do get on CB typically are somebody yelling at somebody else, or somebody lamenting the implementation of e-logs or the immigrant problem. It's everybody's complaining. I realize I'm being hypocritical because I'm complaining on a YouTube video right now, but this is my fucking channel. And if you're watching this fucking video, then it's your own goddamn fault, not mine. So fucking deal with it. The general consensus is a lot more negative now than it used to be. And the problem is that it's what's the way to put this? It's one of those situations where a little bit of self-imposed optimism on everybody's part would go a long way. The job, it's not going to magically make the job better. The job is getting more difficult. The job is getting less profitable. It's still very profitable. I won't lie. It's the reason why I suggest people get into trucking. Because again, my brother made a good point. My brother works usually 60 hours a week in a factory. He always works overtime. He makes $23.50 an hour. His girlfriend makes $25 an hour, working as she repairs she's not a tool and die repair, but she repairs actual equipment, tools, and jigs and stuff for a Honda production plant in Canada. My brother works at a Honda supplier, and it's a shithole. Honda itself is great. I've been in that plant before. I've worked there a little bit. It's a fucking great place to be. But the supplier plant my brother works for kind of sucks. But it pays well enough now to the point where, he's not going to leave. However, he made the point that him and his wife's combined weekly income, or bi-weekly income is a better one, is still less than probably about 40% of my bi-weekly income by myself, right? The first of every month I get a check for $5,000. My brother every 2 weeks gets about 13. Well, some are probably about $1,500, right? His girlfriend makes about that, so they're about $3,000 a piece. So they're maybe closer to 60%. That's probably better. On the 15th of the month, I get anywhere from, another 3 to I could get over $8,000 if I bust my ass. And they, again, are getting about 3 for the two of them put together. So my income is higher by myself as a truck driver. And again, that's as an owner-operator. Company guys, your income is significantly less, but it's still a fairly solid income. My biggest problem with trucking compared to factory, as an example, in a factory, like my brother, his ass is always covered, right? As long as he does his job, he does things by the book. There's enough laws, at least in Canada. I can't speak for the U.S., but the Canadian legal system tries very hard to protect its workers. There are very few people in unions, but it's almost to the point of being a union itself, where my brother has so many protections against sexual harassment, against like harassment by superiors, harassment by anything. It basically boils down to you do your job the way it's supposed to do. You report things that happen by the book. You will always, you're never going to get fucked around. There are still places that fuck people around. I worked at places that fucked me around before I drove truck. Driving truck, you're typically not like. I think it's also partly because most factory jobs you're paid by the hour. The whole everything is reversed. In a factory, typically you want to be there less, and the company's trying to get you to stay there for longer, and you're getting paid for longer because you're paid by the hour. In trucking, typically you want to work more, and the government's trying to make you work less. The problem with trucking is that if you were to, say, piss off your dispatch, they can schedule you shorter runs, right? That'd be the equivalent of, my brother pissing off his supervisor. His supervisor basically somehow being able to force him to only work 6-hour or 5-hour shifts. Now, again, with a factory job, the government basically dictates that can't happen, right? My brother works at a job where he's agreed to work in excess of 40 hours a week, and to qualify as a full-time job, he has to make a minimum of 40 hours a week. So, he's never going to get sent home early because somebody just is mad at him, right? If anything, they'll just make him stay later or work harder or whatever. But it won't cut into his profits. Where with trucking, you kind of have to be careful because if you do piss off your dispatcher or your driver or fucking manager, I hate that fucking term. They can take it out on you in somewhat, I guess it's considered to be a passive-aggressive way, because they probably won't be shitty to your face. You'll just suddenly, instead of going to the West Coast, you'll start going to fucking Chicago, and that's it. I don't think that my dispatchers are mad at me, but I think they've gotten a little bit complacent with me running to Chicago, and I've made the mistake of not bitching about it. I've been doing a lot of these Franklin Park runs. And like I said, the Franklin Park load, the problem is it's an 800-mile trip, so you cannot do it all in one day. It's an 800-mile round trip. You cannot do it all in one day. Especially not because it's in Chicago. Like if it was out west and you're running on the open highways, you probably still wouldn't be able to do it, but you can get damn close. So what you run into is you load, you drive for 3 hours, you shut her down because your delivery's not until the next day. You get up, you drive another 2 or 3 hours, you get there, you deliver, you go to the tank wash, you switch out your trailer, or when they initially did it, they had us wash the trailers there, leave, and I don't know, get a couple hours up the road and stop, because you're eating up a lot of your day on the delivery side by delivering and sitting at the tank wash. Now you're off duty at the tank wash, but your 14 still going, right? So, or your 16 hours, I guess. So you wouldn't be able to get back in time. So what they were doing too is let's say you left, you know, the first load you leave, the trailer's already preloaded for you, so you leave Monday morning at 8 a.m. You could get to the delivery in one day, right? So you get to the delivery for 2 or 3 in the afternoon, you go to the tank wash, well, you can't get very much farther. You get out of Chicago and get into Michigan, no big deal. You got from Sawyer, Michigan, well, I mean, it's basically the length of it streaming right. I haven't even been in an hour yet, and I'm at 67, so I'm still another 2 hours, hour and 45, I think. Let's see if this guy comes in front of me this time. Hour and 45 to the border with Canada, and then from there you're another hour into Canada to get to where the shipper is. Right, so you get to Sawyer, then you get up, you know, you shut her down, you get up, you drive 3 hours to get to the shipper, and then you discover that, you know, you got up at 6 in the morning, you get to the shipper at 10, well, we're not loading you until 7 o'clock tonight. That's the scheduled time. So then you sit there all fucking day, and then when it's 7 o'clock at night, you get your paperwork, you discover that the load's supposed to deliver at 1 o'clock in the afternoon the next day. And you're like, what the fuck? It means you have to drive all night to get there. Right? So you're like, this can't work, because you're driving all day to get back, then you're sitting there all day. Granted, you could try to sleep, but you drove all day the day before and slept all night, so you've just come off of, you know, 8 to 10 hours of sleep. You drive for 3 hours and are basically expected to try to go right back to sleep for the entire day, so that you're able to drive all night, so that you can get to your delivery for the time that they schedule. Now again, there's a bit of a flip side here in that, well, I shouldn't say flip side. I don't care. I'm probably wrong for only having 2 years of experience. I'm not killing myself at this job. I love driving truck, right? I have no problem putting in miles and working hard, but I'm not running illegal, and I'm not running tired, because I don't want to kill somebody else, right? I mean, I'd rather not kill myself either, but I don't want to hurt somebody else because I drove tired, right? So the idea is that I get there, I'm up all day. Like, you know, if you guys load me early, no, I'm going to go play video games. 7 o'clock rolls around, I get my load, I drive 2 hours down the road, I go to sleep. I get up at, you know, by the time I usually try to get across the border. So I might get an hour into Michigan maybe, so it's midnight. So I get up at 10 o'clock, well, I'm going to be 2 hours late for my delivery. Fuck it. And again, I could run tired and be there on time, or I could get all the sleep I need and be 2 hours late. Again, there's some caveats. We're doing the work that I do. Nobody cares about like times. So the receiver doesn't care. Like I've talked to the manager of the section that receives my freight, and he says, no, all we do all fucking day is sit in an office and wait for a truck to show up. He said, it doesn't matter what time you're here, you're not interrupting us from anything. They literally sit in their office.
Don't look at cameras, buddy, you look good.
Like, they watch the chocolate in the tanks, right? But if something goes wrong, they notify maintenance. Otherwise, their only job at that plant is to receive chocolate. So the only problem that can arise from you not being there in your scheduled time is you might show up when the truck's there, so you might have to wait for that truck to be finished. But I've talked to all, like both the day shift and the night shift. I've talked to all four basically guys that receive freight, and they've all said the exact same thing. Like, I don't care. Like, it's either this or I got to try to look busy. Like, it doesn't matter to me when you show up. Like, you know, as long as you're not showing up like 10 minutes or half an hour before the end of my shift, because then even then it's usually like I did it once on the afternoon. So like, yeah, we're gonna have to get you to wait until the shift change happens, because we're too busy cleaning up and stuff, like for the end of the day to start doing your stuff, which is whatever. I showed up late. I'm not really. And granted, there it helps. I don't show up late and then get pissed off because I have to wait a minute, because shit happens, right? You can't control it. I get paid $40 an hour for, after the first 2 hours, I get paid $40 an hour to sit there. It doesn't matter what time I got there. If I'm early, if I'm late, it doesn't matter. If I'm there for more than 2 hours, I'm at $40 an hour. My company doesn't care. There's so much money involved in this shit, it don't matter. So what that boils down to is no stress, right? So I can see some people getting stressed out by, you know, that kind of situation. But for me, it's not. But the problem is that while it's a very there's no stress involved in these Franklin Park loads. There's not a lot of money because there's not a lot of miles. Again, it's taking you 2 days to do 800 miles. Well, if you're doing a longer trip, you can do 600 in 1 day. So you're, you know, at the end of the week, you're doing 12 to 1,600 miles. You know, I mean, you can do more one day than the other and stuff like that. But you're averaging, like I said, 400 miles a day. Maybe a little bit, like I said, yeah, we'll say averaging 400 miles a day, because you're still only in 1 day doing half the direction. Whether it's 1 day you do 600 and the next day you do 2, or, you know, kind of in the middle or somewhere around there. It's always averaging out. So you're 4, 8, 12, 16. Yeah, you're 2,000, not even well, yeah, I guess maybe 2,000 miles at the end of the week if you do 3 of them, right? Which I've done. I did it to help my company out after I came back from Nevada. The problem is that when I started doing them, I was promised I was going to be going to. I guess it doesn't matter if I say it, because I imagine that nobody that watches my YouTube channel is going to be a coworker. I was told that they were supposed to have some loads going to Arizona. Again, we'll get you going on one of those. It hasn't happened yet. And I know that the loads have been going there. They have sent several loads out there. So, okay, well, you know, get off your horse here, or on your horse, and let's send me out west again, because A, I love it. B, it's good money, and C, it's once you're dispatched, like once you load, you got a couple of days before you got to worry about, you know, pumping a load off or dicking around with the trailer or anything like that. Like, you know, then you're just you in the open road type of thing, where trucking is at its coolest. So it's kind of those loads remind me of when I worked in Scotland, right? When I went to the West Coast all the time, and after you loaded, you could put her in the wind and just go trucking for a couple of days. Where now, like, this trip, because I went to North Dakota, wasn't too bad, because the same thing, right? Like yesterday and today, it's just all trucking, right? I'm not sure yet if I'm going to get to the tank wash tonight. I want to, because then I can ditch the trailer. My dispatcher had the idea. He said, okay, well, you know, if you can get the trailer to the what we call the Rocket tonight, which is a heater we have, which is the tank wash in Georgetown, Ontario, I could drop the trailer there. They were going to get a local guy to deliver it tomorrow, and therefore I could go home and start a reset and leave Sunday for Virginia, which is a pretty good run. Because Alta Vista, Virginia, you do nothing there. You show up, you back in, you don't even get out of your truck. They do everything. It's fucking great. And the chick that usually offloads is cute, so it's like awesome. But they said, like you know, if you're into Friday, we might not be able to get a local guy to pick it up because you won't be there yet. So you might have to run it out there yourself. Which I can still do the Alta Vista, but A, I'm going to have less time off, so I'll just squeeze in a reset. B, I'd have to deliver in Toronto, and it's a shithole. Toronto sucks. We have dedicated local guys with day cabs going to Toronto. Right? Toronto's just a fucking zoo, so I don't want to do that. So I've got, what do I got left? On US hours, I've got 4.5 hours left. Technically, by Canadian standards, I have 6.5. However, our e-logs do not switch over to the Canadian hours of service. Most Canadian drivers or e-logs will. The company that the e-log provider that my company went with does not. So the problem is that it will technically show up as a violation, and then it kind of is up to the discretion of the officer to determine whether or not, because it does say where I am, whether or not that, okay, you know, you have an hours of service violation, you drove for 12 hours, but you were in Canada and normally you can legally drive for 13, so I'm going to let it go, or say, you know what, no, like, if your e-log doesn't change to reflect that, you violated your hours of service regardless. So here's the problem. Like, I got lucky. I got when I entered Minnesota, they were doing a full paperwork and like fuel inspection. They wanted to make sure I didn't have any dyed diesel. So the OTL, he was very good, super friendly, thorough, but friendly. Like, we were shooting the breeze a little bit and stuff. He asked me, he wanted to look through my e-logs, so he looks through, and he asked me, he's like, you got a couple days off, right? I said, yeah. Yeah, I came in for a reset, because I've done a reset since I'd gone over my hours. I said, okay. So he let me go with it, but he could have said, well, on Friday before your reset, I went over my hours on my cycle, which didn't really matter, and that one was bad enough that it didn't really matter. I offered to train a guy. And the scheduling for the training kind of got fucked up, so I ended up driving over my hours. I was going to do a reset like 2 hours from home, and I said, fuck that, I'm going home. So there was kind of a problem there, I guess. But he let it pass because it had a reset. He could have nailed me to the wall for that and made me sit in the fucking, in the scale for 36 hours, which would have really sucked. But he let me go, so... he was good there. Reported no violations. It was great. So it's something that I typically try not to do with this logbook, because you could eventually get somebody that decides he's going to nail you to the wall. You went over your hours. I don't care what it says. If you're in Canada, it should flip you over to Canadian hours, so it doesn't take you out of service. It's out of service. Right? Out of service is out of service. Or over your hours is over your hours, or whatever. So... that's something. I think our company switched to a new e-log system. I think the new ones are like a normal e-log that will actually adjust for that. Like most e-logs I've had, the satellite is tracking, it automatically detects when you cross the country border and just automatically flips you over to the other hours of service. I'm hoping for that on the new one. I don't know. I don't know if it's any better. Most of the guys seem to like it, but I haven't heard the details yet. So I think I'm going to wrap this video up because I'm already at almost the cutoff point again. So I'm at well over fucking hour as usual. But yeah, there's not a lot of stuff going on, updates. I'm going to try to, now that I got all this stuff set up, should be able to film again fairly regularly. Obviously I'm going to be going home for a reset tonight. Once I start heading down to Virginia, I'll start filming again, and y'all can see the South. Yeehaw! Have fun.